Previously, in part one of this adventure, I made my way to the island of Coll, where I slept overnight in my inflatable cabin cruiser in a sheltered inlet on the island's northeastern coast. In the morning, I then headed to the cairns of Coll, a series of rocks and reefs, where I landed on a white shell beach, had morning coffee listening to the cry of the many seabirds. A splendid way to start my day. I then clambered back into the boat for a quick tour of the many waterways separating the reefs. All the time I was watched carefully and cautiously by the resident grey seals, of which there are many. Having enjoyed my slow tour of the cairns of Coll, I then turned west to explore the sheltered southern coast of the island. Heavy clouds threatened rain, but it didn't come to much. It looked much wetter over Mull and the mainland. Each and every island off the west coast of Scotland is very unique and has its own special charms. Coll is low-lying with a rocky coastline, but no high sea cliffs. I didn't see many trees, presumably because of its windswept location. The charm of Coll is its lovely sandy beaches, and of course the chance to see dolphins, whales and basking sharks. Speaking of which, as soon as I saw these common dolphins, I knew it was going to happen next. Yep, they appear to love mobbing my boats, bow riding, racing, and also slapping the bottom of the boat with their big tails. This is how they kill the salmon they are very fond of. Stun them with a good tail slap, throw them in the air, and then swallow them whole in their open mouths. I guess I'm lucky my boat is too big to get thrown in the air and then get swallowed. As such, I tend to think of them as smiling assassins rather than playful dolphins. There's certainly a welcome distraction on a now drizzle rain morning. And it didn't take long to reach Arran na Gower, the main port in Coll, and it's where the mainland ferry berths. Plenty of yachts are visiting the island, but none were as small as my inflatable cabin cruiser. I guess I'm unique in that aspect. There's a small store selling groceries and the likes, a hotel and even a small petrol station in the village. But I didn't require anything, so I just got, then turned and headed back to sea. Coll's coastline has many sunken rocks and reefs to watch out for, and I was thankful for the rolling swell which highlighted these obstructions with a plume of white water. The further west I went, the brighter the sky became. Soon it was time to look at some of the stunning sandy beaches Coll is renowned for, as I turned into Loch Bracacha to admire one of the most famous beaches. miles of sandy shore with not a soul in sight. The ancient castle was restored recently, but it now looks like part of the modern castle beside it requires restoring. I landed for a coffee and to soak in the atmosphere of this deserted beach. Then I headed around the corner to more miles of sand and dunes. However, this time there was a yacht admiring this one. I was now reaching the end of Coll, and my plans were to moor up for the night in the little island of Gunna. However, I wasn't sure how exposed Gunna would be, so checked out a few small sandy coves in the way, which I felt would be perfect. After all, any port in a storm will do. I left the island of Coll and headed into the Sound of Gunna. Straight in front is the island of Tiree, and Gunna is a small island lying between Coll and Tiree. I turned towards Gunna as I noticed a couple of sheltered-looking bays in the Ordnance Survey map, and sure enough, hidden behind a reef were the bays, both suitable for an overnight stop. Initially, I couldn't decide which bay to use, but when I heard the seals wailing at the entrance of the bigger bay, I decided the noise would bother me trying to sleep, so I chose the smaller bay. And I'm pleased to say the smaller bay was much quieter. It was still an hour from low tide, so I headed round to the main sandy shore in Gunna to await low water so I could ensure when I moored the boat for the night it wouldn't dry out. Above this shore is the only house in Gunna, which I believe is a holiday home, and there is no permanent resident on the island. To pass the time till low tide, I took a walk along the beach and then gave the drone some exercise. It was still a little early to anchor up in Gunna, so I headed over to Tiree for a quick coffee on the shore, just to say that I'd also visited that island. Although it looks lovely sitting in the sun, I was well wrapped up as the north wind was still bitterly cold. I then headed back to the smaller sheltered bay and placed my mooring buoy in 2 feet of water at low tide and over a sandy bottom. Then, to pass some time until dinner time, I took a walk around this lovely island in its own little sandy paradise. There was something very obvious to me on my walk around Gunna. The beaches and coastline had no plastic or old ropes littering them. The owner or someone else must collect and dispose of it. The strange thing is, I hardly notice the rubbish on other islands' beaches, possibly because I'm conditioned to seeing it. But when there is none, it's stuck out like a sore thumb. It's lovely to see such a clean and well-kept island. Back in the wee bay, I enjoyed a supper of sausages, shrooms, bacon and egg, and tomatoes, washed down with some Guinness gravy. Then I hooked the boat onto the buoy in the middle of the bay and spent the rest of the night sleeping it off. And day 2 was done. The wind died during the night, although I heard rain in the tent a couple of times. However, it was a lovely sunny morning to day 3. After breakfast and folding the tent down, I headed out into the sound of Gunna again, this time heading along the exposed side of Coll. I'm glad it was almost high tide, as there's a fair tide race on the western tip of Coll. Then I had to avoid a very long reef just below the sea surface. Fortunately, the rolling swells again highlighted the reef with a white water plume. I did turn into Fell Bay to see the sands there. Sadly, my gimbal battery went flat here, so I had to revert to my GoPro for the rest of the Coll coastline. I could see lots of lovely sandy inlets as I neared the eastern end of Coll, much like the inlet I spent the night in Gunna. But the swell breaking in the shores kept me out to sea, and finally I arrived back where I started my round of Coll the previous day, the cairns of Coll. I landed in the same white shell beach I landed on then too, enjoyed a mid-morning break before heading back over the open sea crossing to Mull and the mainland. I can only describe the sea crossing as super smooth. And as it was such a nice day, I headed for Loch Sunnet to have another night's kip in the wee cabin cruiser. I ran my mooring rope from the shore to anchor in a sheltered sea loch off the Isle of Oronsay. I marked my line with a couple of boys in case other boats passed by. Then I made my dinner, enjoying the smell of more sausages and bacon, mingled with the smell of heather and bog myrtle. It was a lovely calm evening and not a midge in sight. I presume the cold July winds had killed them off. Then I took the drone for its walk, and it was lovely seeing green trees and bushes again, unlike Coll and Tiree, which is only grass and sand dunes. I enjoyed another quiet, relaxing night, and in the morning got the boat ready for the journey home. After a breakfast of cereal and coffee, I headed down the Sound of Mull in a flat calm. Just as I reached the Lismore tide race, the wind suddenly blew up to a force 4 again. But by this time it was too late to cause me any concern. I was home. I covered 150 miles in these 4 days. I never got a single tick or midge bite, and I'm delighted the wee inflatable cabin cruiser is so comfortable. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.